What's going on, YouTube? So today I wanted to talk to you about something um, a bit deeper, and I reckon something that has made me a lot more patient, understanding, and completely, and I say completely, changed the way I see challenging situations. And I wanted to share that with you guys as soon as possible because I think this is a big chapter or a big impact, or this particular scenario or this particular part that I've learned, I think is the biggest or the most impactful change that I have made since I've started my personal development journey, probably I would say late 2013. So in the last decade, I think the biggest change for my personal development, and when I say personal development, this is more about um, my relationships and situations. Obviously, through my other videos, you would know that I have broken down personal development into three separate things. One is financial development, so my personal finances. Two is my intimate relationships, or my intimate relationship with my partner. And three is my friends and family. I could say there's a subcategory in the friends and family of my professional relationships, or how I deal with people in my professional career. So I would say this has more impacted in my second and third points, which is my intimate relationship, and also my relationship with my family, friends, and any professional relationships I do have. And this is to do with the emotions I have and how that has changed, I would say, in the last 6 months. I have now gone into learning how to identify my emotions correctly. Now, this is still a journey that I'm going through. It is not something that I have perfected, or I would say I would ever perfect. I would say that this is something that I will continue to do. However, I think now I'm at a place where I am practicing a pattern that's actually helping me deal with scenarios, situations that could be somewhat challenging and have usually in my past just spiraled out of control to be something way bigger than it should be. And that's to do with identifying my emotions correctly. So I would say I would start with what or why emotions are important. And I think emotions are what makes us human, what makes us who we are. Without emotions, I think we're not human. We're just robots, just doing day to day things. And I think every day we go through so many emotions. However, we kind of label them with what we know, and or I would say what our style under stress is, and we quickly fall into that category or that particular emotional level straight away because that's what we've been programmed to do from a very young age. This has to do a lot to do with how we were brought up as well, and how we reacted at a young age. There's a lot of literature that says about the impressionable age, which is between, if I recall correctly, it's between the age of 3 and about 7. I would say that my impressionable age probably was till about age 13, and my current patterns are really my body language, my reactions, my emotions are still how we was programmed between, I would say, till about 13 years old, and I am very quick to go to those reactions, those body languages, those feelings really, really quickly. So I think it's very easy. I would say a lot of people will agree that our emotions will define our day. Like if you wake up with a really bad dream or have something that you're not very particularly happy with, and you wake up, you are in a bad mood. And without understanding how those emotions affect you, you just continue your day, and it's very easy to have a positive feedback loop that is actually negatively spiraling you downwards, because you go from one reaction to the other to the other to the other. Eventually, you just come out of the day having a really terrible day. And add in some, outside effects of, getting stuck in traffic, running late, having, things not go well at work, and there you go, you've just exploded. And sometimes that could be really catastrophic. So I would say emotions are extremely important, and it could define your day, it could define your week, technically it could define your whole life, because what you do day to day is your life in miniature. So it is really important that your day to day life is defined and clearly done, so that overall your life is a lot better as well. So I think emotions are extremely important, and that's part of it. So how do we identify emotions to help us? And this is, I think, this is where we have to understand what emotions are and what you're feeling at that point. Because in an example, say where you're in traffic and someone cuts you off, my automatic reaction is to get angry, and then start getting upset at this person. Now, as soon as that happens, I go into this weird thought process of how angry I am at this guy. Like, if I get to him, like, how I'll be yelling at him, screaming at him, and what I'm going to do next. And then, like, I'm just building a story in my head of how many things that I'm going to do just because I've been cut off. Right. And that's because my automatic reaction is to get angry. Now, we don't know why this person cut you off or cut me off. I have no idea. It could be the person might have not seen me. The person might be running late to an emergency meeting. I don't know. But my automatic reaction is to get angry. And that can cause catastrophic repercussions over the day, because I'm now worked up over that. And then, say, for example, you get a phone call from your partner or your family or one of your friends, you're still in that agitated state. So, it takes only a little bit for them to be upset with them, and suddenly you're in this spiral dive that you can't pull out of. And that is all because I got angry, and my emotion was to get angry at that person cutting you off. Now, in that example, like, one of the key things is my style under stress, or my style under any situation, is to get angry. Even if I'm sad or I've been hurt, I somehow find a way to transfer it to being angry. And this is where I had to recalibrate myself and kind of work on this scenario. What's going on, guys? So I was editing this video, and I realized that in this particular, I guess, the next part of the video, you could see or you could hear two notifications coming in on my computer. That was a couple of messages that came in, and you could see my automatic reaction. I just saw that, and my automatic reaction was frustration, which is technically, or that's leaning towards anger. That was my automatic reaction there. Initially, I thought I'll edit that out of the video. However, I'm going to leave that there because that's a crucial part. You could see how I reacted there, so you can see how those automatic reactions work. So it's quite interesting seeing that, and I thought I'll leave that for you so that you guys can see how I automatically react to things, and my programming is still going into that style, natural style under stress, which is frustration and anger. Have a look whether you can see that. Hope you enjoy the rest of the video. So one of the biggest reasons for me to get angry was because I was in a scenario where when I was growing up, I my parents did not let me express my feelings the way I wanted to. It was always, hey, don't be sad, don't cry. There's nothing to cry about. You need to stop crying right now. Uh, so even when I got hurt, my easiest reaction to do was to get angry. That way, I could just suppress my emotions or suppress those feelings, and then I could kind of move on with the day. So this is where I think the biggest problem that occurred in my scenario, which is I only know to get angry. That's the only reaction and the emotion that I knew. So now I think the first step was to understand what my style under stress was. My style under stress was to get angry. Different people have different styles under stress. Some people feel anxiety, some people feel sad, some people, just hide in a corner. The key important factor there is step one would be to identify what your style under stress is. That way you know where to work from. So in my case, it was anger, and I had to learn how to understand that this is me reacting to the situation, but I am reacting incorrectly. This has happened to me in workplace as well, where customers will complain, and my first reaction is to get angry and go, no, that's not how it is, and go in this defensive mode, which is not the case. I did not look at the scenario in a very, I would say, in a very clinical view, because if you don't look at it as what you see right there, you suddenly take into account all these feelings you have from your past, and then you add that into that scenario, and then it just explodes into something that it shouldn't be. So the first thing is understand your style under stress, and then I would say the second step is labeling those reactions and your emotions correctly. This will be the hardest part. So the hardest part is knowing how to label your emotions correctly. When I have, so the example of me getting cut off in traffic, the emotion there is I'm feeling treated unfair, or being feel like I've been, you know, treated in unjust. So rather than that and going, hey, that was unfair what that person did, that shouldn't have happened, and then think about it going, hey, maybe that's because he didn't see me, or he was upset. And I admit there was times where people have cut me off, and then I've driven on the right hand lane, overtook them, and look at them. It's some old lady or some old gentleman who has no idea of what the surroundings are. They just decided to do what they do in their own world. So in that situation, if I labeled my emotion correctly, I would know, okay, I've been treated unjust. I feel unjust right now. I feel like this person has treated me unfair. That is the key point, because then you can work from there, rather than if you're angry and you spiral dive into going through all these unnecessary emotions or unnecessary actions and stories, you just create unnecessary trouble. So that's step two. Step two is learning to label your emotions correctly. This is really hard, and it was extremely hard for me, and I'm still working on it, because um, in the book, The Heart of the Atlas of the Heart by Renee Brown, she gives a great example about this. Now, think about it this way, right? So if you have an extreme pain in your shoulder and you go to the GP, but when you get to the GP, your mouth is taped shut and your arms are tied to the back, and you have to tell your GP that you have a pain in your shoulder. Imagine how challenging it is to get to that point. You have extreme pain right now, but you have no way of pointing as where your pain is coming from, or what you're actually going through right now, because you don't have the capability of communicating at all. So I guess communication is part of the vocabulary, right? So this is where knowing what emotions are, and what type of emotions there are, that is I would say the first part. Like, it's really important that you go through as many emotions, or like learn a lot about emotions, learn what type of emotions they are, so that you can actually identify when you feel something. You can go, okay, this right now I'm feeling anger, right now I'm feeling sadness, right now I'm feeling hurt, right now I feel disappointed. Those key emotions, or knowing what emotions are and when you feel them, is probably the hardest but the most crucial part of this strategy, and improving in yourself. So labeling the emotions correctly will get you a lot further than if you are just going in your default mode or falling into the style under stress. Now, in the book Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey talks about um, this. So, one of the first habit of highly effective people are they are proactive. So it's be proactive. Now, how I do this is when I feel something, at the moment the best thing I could do is this. It's very hard to do in a very quick scenario. However, I do take my time now, when it comes to different things, or different scenarios. I take a step back and I ask myself, right now what I'm feeling, is that the right feeling I should have? So in this part of the video, I couldn't actually point out that in the book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey talks about one of the other habits, which is seek to understand and then to be understood. So when the customer was saying the burger was not, well, burger was terrible or burger was shit, seeking to understand what they're going through and what it is probably the part that I should have pointed out, which I didn't. So while I was editing, I thought I'll just insert this part into it. So ask more questions to more understand the scenario, so that you can get a clear picture of what's actually going on. If someone is yelling and screaming, so a good example will be, I've got my pizzeria and the coffee bar. A customer comes in and goes, "Oh, I ordered this burger, but it's terrible." Now, my automatic reaction is to be defensive, and that comes from my childhood upbringing, which is about, hey, you got to defend yourself because uh, I was being told that I was shit at everything, I was bad at everything, I wouldn't be anything. So my automatic reaction is to defend myself, to go, no, 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 this is great, without actually really listening to what the customer is saying. In that scenario, the customer is like, hey, my burger's shit. Now, that doesn't really help. Like, if someone says the food's crap, like, okay, the burger has these toppings. What particular scenario, what exactly do you not like about this? Was it undercooked? Was the flavor not good? Like, what exactly it is? So ask more questions. Now, when you do that, when you ask more questions, you get more time to get your emotions in check and to ask yourself, hey, am I feeling the right emotions right now? So, in that scenario, I can say, okay, I understand that you are not happy with the food that was served to you. How can I make it better? What can we do right now? Now, a lot of people go into going, oh, no, it's terrible. I don't really like this. Okay, what do you not like about this? Is there anything I can do differently? Can I cook you something differently? If I have to cook you something differently, what can I do differently to make this better? If When I get to that scenario where I can break down the current problem into smaller pieces, I have more time to manage my emotions, or in this case, label them correctly, and understand that this is got nothing to do with me personally, and I don't have to feel these things, what I'm feeling. I don't have to feel angry. I don't have to be defensive. This is not a personal attack on me. That way, I can understand and regulate my emotions would be the best way to do, and say, okay, in this scenario, none of my emotions are required. This is nothing to do with me. This is about the food. This particular scenario is about the food. I just need to make the customer happy, or in this, how can I make him or her appreciate what we have done, or explain that. So I believe that's where my biggest change happened, where I started asking my questions. Sometimes I go up to my deck, I sit on at the table and just stare out to the bush. That's I do that quite often now, actually. And I ask myself, how am I feeling? Hey, what feelings do I feel right now? Asking yourself these things, it sounds like society has made these rules about, you can't just be by yourself. It's not true. Like, I think my biggest growth came from being by myself and talking to myself and asking myself these questions, these crucial questions about, hey, how are you feeling right now? Why are you feeling this way? I was in a position where my outside world was completely identical to what it is right now, but internally I was broken. I was anxious. I was borderline depressed. I was feeling like I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't achieving anything. And it was just my perspective of the way I was seeing everything because of how I was feeling. And that's because I did not know how to label my emotions. In that scenario, if I sat there, asked those questions at the time, I believe that I could have gotten out of that rut a lot faster. So what I do now is, if I am in a very, you know, kind of low energy mentality, I go out to the deck, I sit there, and I ask myself, why are you feeling right like this right now? What exactly am I feeling right now? What can I do to change that? Is it an outside thing, or is it my mind playing games with me? So I believe by identifying emotions correctly, you have the opportunity to change every scenario. Not only that, I think the biggest thing is you will be able to stop situations from spiraling out of control to from one thing to another, because that's one of the biggest crucial things that happened to me most of my life. Is I would have one scenario and it would just have this domino effect of just affecting all the other scenarios or all the other areas of my life, because I did not know how to label my emotions, number one, and how to actually not react but be proactive, like actually understand that this does not require emotion. This does not need to be an emotionally charged situation. So those two steps will get you a lot further than anything else. And I would urge you guys to try this, and I would urge you guys to just go through this and see how you just test this for a month. Every time you get into a challenging situation, ask yourself, am I reacting to this, or am I being proactive? What is my feelings? Try to question those automatic programming, and I can assure you your life is going to change for the better. Now, I hope this video was helpful for you guys. If it was, just press the thumbs up button and subscribe for more of these videos. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.